In this lecture, we will be talking about CGI scripts. Now, we have been talking about the necessity for having CGI scripts, the necessity of having some kind of processing capability on the side of the web server, so that some kind of processing can be done at that end. We gave some typical examples, that of submitting a form data and the data going on the server side and some processing taking place on that side before the results coming back. So, in this lecture we would talk about the basic technology behind CGI scripts, how we can write a CGI script program and what are the different things we need to remember when we are trying to write such a program. The first thing is, CGI is an acronym. CGI stands for Common Gateway Interface. CGI stands for Common Gateway Interface. Now, in CGI we can do a few things. Now, using CGI we can create interactive web pages. We can also provide two-way interaction and dynamic web page creation using CGI. Pages can be created dynamically. Of course, this will be based on what the user wants. And one thing you may be thinking, that is CGIs are nothing but some programs which are running on the side of the server. Why are they called scripts? They are called scripts due to traditional reasons. Traditional reason means that the first CGI programs that were written, they were written using Unix shell scripts or Perl scripts. So, for those of you who are not familiar with Unix shell scripts, let me tell you, Unix shell scripts provides us with a very powerful string handling capability. It is a very small and simple language using which you can combine the Unix commands in a very powerful way and you can do certain things in a very efficient way and repetitively. So, Unix shell scripts and Perl scripts were used to write the first CGI programs, but in actuality CGI programs can be written in almost any language, C, Java, C++, anything. Depending on the server you are using, CGI scripts or CGI programs will be residing in some special directory. Typically, a directory called CGI bin is created, under which these CGI script programs are stored. Now, let us talk of a very popularly used web server program, Apache. Now, in Apache, say Apache is a web server which is freely available on the net, and I strongly recommend you should download Apache sometime and try to install it on your machine. When you install Apache, you will see a few things. There is a particular Apache home directory that is created, that is called the Apache root, and under the root directory some default subdirectories get created. Okay. Let us see what are the different subdirectories that get created in Apache. Well, one is of course that CGI bin that I have mentioned. So, under CGI bin most of the server side or interactive programs will be residing. These programs may be written in Perl, Java, scripting language or any other programming language. There is another directory called conf, which will contain some Apache configuration files. There is another directory htdocs, under which all HTML and other documents will get stored. This htdocs usually will contain many subdirectories. This directory is called the document root. Document root means, say in many cases when we access a website, we give something like www.yahoo.com. We do not give any path or any particular file name after that. So, what this means is that I am trying to refer to a default file in the directory root of that particular server. So, here when Apache is installed, a directory root gets created, and if anyone wants to access it, default file, typically default file is named as index.html or default.html in some cases. You need not have to specify that will be taken by default. So, htdocs is a directory. Then there is a directory called icons, where all these small images or icons which Apache uses are stored. Then there is another folder or directory called images. This can contain all the images files that will be used in the website. And of course, there is another directory called logs, which will contain all the log files, information about the accesses and also of the error messages you have got. Okay. All right. Now, let us come back to the structure of a CGI script. When a CGI script is invoked by the server, because CGI script is a program which is stored on the web. This is the CGI script and this is the web server. So, CGI script is normally not executing, the web server can wake it up, it can invoke it. So, when the CGI script is invoked by the server has to pass some information to the CGI script. Those are the input data to the program. Now, input data can be passed in two ways, get and post. Get and post you have already seen earlier in the context of HTTP protocol, we have seen that. So, exactly the same thing happens here. HTTP also we are trying to send something to the server in a particular way. Here also we are doing the same thing. Get and post actually tells you exactly in what form the data are coming to the server. Now, whether we are using get or post, which is called the request method, this can be known from the environment variable called request method. Here let me talk a little bit about environment variable. See, you know, when you are writing a program, you can use variables, you can store some values in the variables. If you are using a shell script or a shell programming, if you are familiar with Unix, you can define shell variables and you can assign some values to it, but these values are all local. As long as your session is continuing, you can access these variables, their values, but some other user, you log out again log in, you will not get that values anymore. In contrast, environment variables are those which are some sort of, you can say, they do not get destroyed, they remain permanently until or unless you change them. Suppose I assign some value to an environment variable, that will remain as long as the machine is running. So, I can log out, I can again log in, I can get that same value environment variable with me. Now, here when we are talking about passing some values from one program to another, actually we are talking about environment variables. CGI script is a separate program, some other program will be forwarding some value to it, it can do it through the environment variable. The web server understands the request method from the method attribute of the form possibly, and it can set the environment variable accordingly. The CGI script program, whenever it requires, it can read the value of the environment variable and it can find out which method is being used, get or post. Okay. So, here the request method environment variable is used. Now, let us look at the detail of the get request method. The get request method sends request information as parameters appended at the end of the URL. So, if you have defined a form with method equal to get, you have filled up the form and submitted, exactly what goes to the server? What goes to the server is this. In the first part, you have the URL of the server and the path of the CGI script program, which was there as part of the form definition from where you had clicked submit. So, this will tell you exactly what is the name of the server side CGI program prog.pl, followed by a question mark. After question mark, the values that you had entered in the form will come. Suppose in the form there were 3 fields: name, roll number and age. Suppose you have filled them up and submitted, and you can assign some names to each of these form elements. Suppose the names were name, roll NO and age. So, the values will be going to the web server in this way: name equal to Niloy, suppose this is what you had entered, ampersand roll number equal to 7312, this is what you have entered, and age equal to 24. So, whatever you have entered will be going as a string, concatenated string of name and value pairs, name equal to value and name equal to value and name equal to value and so on, as a single string. Okay. Now, when this kind of a request goes to the web server receives it, it identifies this question mark, and whatever is there after the question mark, that gets stored in another environment variable called query string. For this example, query string will contain this particular value. So, you can understand, if the CGI program now wants to read the data that was entered in the form, it can directly read it from the query string environment variable. It stores a string containing the name value pairs with equal to and ampersand acting as delimiters, right. Okay. Before coming to post, let me tell you a little bit about get. One more thing, in get you are getting the data as a string which is stored in an environment variable called post. Now, the difficulty here is that in most machines there is a maximum length to the size of this string you can use. Okay, this I had also mentioned earlier. So, the use of get is very limited. If you have only few number of parameters and their values are small in a form, then only you can use, otherwise it can cross that limit of 256 characters and you can lose some information. Okay, fine. Post is more widely used. In post there are some differences. Here the web server does not store the data in some environment variable, rather it makes some arrangement so that the CGI script can read the data from the standard input. This means that if you are writing the CGI script program in C, then you can use a normal scanf statement to read the data. Okay. So, as if the data you are reading from the standard input, the same way you can do it. But you need some information, like you need that the size of the incoming data, how many total characters are there in the string that you want to read from the standard input. So, this is stored in an environment variable called content length. See, here also whatever you are reading from the standard input, the format is the same, name equal to value ampersand name equal to value ampersand and so on. So, you can read it character by character in whatever way you want, you can read it and you can parse it. The thing is that you must know that how many characters are there in the total list, that is stored separately in another environment variable called content length. Now, here you can understand why I had mentioned earlier that this CGI script programming requires good string handling capabilities, because you can imagine if you want to write this program in C, you need to do a lot of things. You need to read the characters one after the other, you need to see where there is an equal to sign, that means the name has ended and the value is starting, again you have to read it character by character, wait for the ampersand, if it is a number you will have to convert it into a value and so on. Languages like Perl and some other languages have a very simple facility to read them directly, we will see that later. So, as I had mentioned, the format of the posted data which can be read through this standard input is like this: variable 1 equal to value 1, ampersand variable 2 equal to value 2 and so on. So, when you are writing a generalized CGI program, it is good to read the request method to understand or to know that from where you are expecting the input data to come, from the query string environment variable or from the standard input, depending on whether the value is get or post. Request method can be used to take this decision. So, to summarize whatever we have said, for get we can read the data from the query string variable. For post we can read data from standard input, but the number of bytes we can get from content length. However, in both the cases data are available in the same format, variable equal to this one, and as example this. So, this is what you have to remember. Okay. There is something called URL encoding that you need to do whenever something is being passed to the server. See, you click on the submit button, something goes to the server, even it is a get URL question mark followed by something, name equal to value and so on. Now, in the value, well, I can type my name Indranil blank Sen blank Gupta. There will be blanks in my URL, but normally in a URL you cannot give blank spaces because blank is taken as a delimiter. So, there has to be something which you need to do before the URL can be sent to the server, right. This is something called URL encoding. This is used mainly for platform independence, because in some platforms some symbols may have some special meaning. So, if you use those special symbols as part of the URL, then some systems may recognize it properly, some systems may not. So, you should be careful. So, URL encoding, there are a few simple rules. Variables are separated by ampersand, this you already know. So, this ampersand is a special character. So, naturally the question arises, what will happen if this ampersand appears as part of my string? Okay. Suppose in the form there is an entry called movie name, I have typed Tom and Jerry, that ampersand was there in between. So, the receiver may incorrectly interpret that ampersand as the end of the name value pair. Okay. So, these special characters, this ampersand is one of them, as I just mentioned. They can be specified as escape sequences by their 2-digit hexadecimal equivalents. For some examples, the percentage symbol can be replaced by percentage 25. See, percentage is a special symbol because this is the symbol you are using to escape. This is the escape sequence character. Blank you replace by percentage 20, this is the ASCII equivalent of the blank. Sometimes instead of percentage 20 you can also use plus, because in many cases this plus sign is also interpreted as a space character. Okay. So, when you are decoding back at the server side, the process is just the reverse. You can separate out the variables, you can replace the plus sign by spaces, you can replace all percentage hash signs with their corresponding ASCII characters. But now the question arises that what are my special symbols, what are the characters that need to be escaped, replaced by their escape sequences. In fact, you will see that there are many characters need to be replaced by their escape sequences. That is why this URL encoding is important. Which characters are encoded? Firstly, well, here I am talking about ASCII. This 0x00 means in hexadecimal 00 up to 0x1f, 1f in hexadecimal. 00 to 1f, these are control characters. They will have to be encoded by the escape sequences because they cannot be represented by any printable character, and as a special character 7f. Normally we work with 7-bit ASCII characters. We do not use the MSB, most significant bit is used for parity or it is made 0 permanently. But if you are using 8-bit characters, then we can use some special symbols by utilizing the 8-bit also. So, those 8-bit characters are normally not on the keyboard or not easily printable, some systems may not recognize them. So, they will have to be escaped also. Characters given special importance, like I told you, ampersand, question mark, semicolon, slash, dollar, there are many such, plus, they will also have to be escaped. Some characters which are used to delimit URLs like less than, greater than, percentage, hash, double quote, they will also have to be escaped. Some characters are considered unsafe because there are some protocols, for example, mime and other protocols, email, SMTP, mime, there some other characters may have some special meaning. So, they will also have to be escaped. So, actually you see that other than the few alphanumeric characters, most other characters need to be escaped because they have some special meaning in some context or the other. So, this URL encoding is an elaborate process. Many of the characters need to be replaced by their ASCII or hex equivalents. Okay. So, there is one point to note: when the server is passing the data using the post method to the CGI script program, there is an environment variable again called content type. Content type will tell you that whatever the server is giving me, is it URL encoded or it is in the proper form, I need not do anything with it, I need not have to decode it separately. So, if the value of the content type is this particular string, this means that whatever is coming has been URL encoded and needs to be decoded. Application /x www form URL encoded. This is a part of the mime header which comes. So, it is straight away stored in the environment variable content type, so that you can know by looking at the value of the variable whether such an encoding has taken place or it is not required. Okay. Fine. So, the basic structure of a CGI script, as we have seen, it looks something like this. Now in the first step, you do some kind of initialization. First, you can check for the request method. Now, the request method can be get or post. If it is get, you will have to read the data from the query string environment variable. If it is post, then you have to read it from the standard input. If you are reading from the standard input, the content length will tell you how many characters you need to read total. So, depending on whatever you have identified as a request method, you can read the name and value pairs, but you will have to finally parse the string, the characters, and extract the variables and their names, because ultimately they are coming as name equal to nilloy like that. So, you will have to separate out name and nilloy. what is the name of that form element and what is the value associated with that form element. Those will be required for actually processing of the data inside your CGI program. Then you will have to check the content type variable to find out if you need to decode the string which is coming to you. If required, you will have to decode. In the second step, we need to do some processing. Here you need to process the input data. Of course, this depends on the context. So, you are writing a CGI script program. If it is a search engine, you may need to consult the database, extract some data, return it back to you. If it is a email gateway like say Rediff or Yahoo or Gmail, then you are typing something, email address, the body of the email, subject, then you are pressing go or send, that is like submitting the form. So, there again if the form is submitted, the CGI script program will be sending the data to the email server for further processing and sending. Okay. So, it really depends on the context in which you are actually using the CGI script. And CGI script, after processing the data, will have to output the result which will be coming back to the web server, not to the client, to the browser. Now, the way the results are sent back, they are sent back using mime type headers and the contents. So, the data that will be sent back as output from the CGI script will contain a header portion, that is the mime type header which I had already seen earlier, followed by the body. So, if you are writing the CGI script in some language say C, then when you are outputting the result, you need to make sure that you are outputting all the mime headers, everything in the proper format. If it is an HTML, then the mime header will tell you that it is an HTML file, then the actual body will contain all those HTML, head, body, all those tags. So, it will be exactly in that format. You will have to create or output the data in that particular format to be processed in a proper way. And of course, the third step is the termination. After the CGI script finishes, it releases the system resources, it terminates the program. Now, this is how typically a CGI script program works. A CGI script program is residing on the web server. You submit a form, the web server receives the form data, the web server invokes the CGI script program, the CGI script program can read the data, do something and stop. And if I submit the form again the CGI script program will be woken up. And if there are 10 simultaneous requests, the older versions of the browsers and the servers, they invoked multiple copies of the CGI script program, and that increased the load on the server quite a bit. But of course, nowadays with the sophisticated technologies of threading and other things, modern browsers can use multi-threading to create multiple threads to handle multiple user requests. So, even the CGI script program can be threaded by the web server when new requests come. Okay, fine. Now, let us look at some of the environment variables that are used in conjunction with CGI scripts. Some of this we have already seen. For example, content length. Content length is used in conjunction with the post method of submission of data. This gives you the length of the URL encoded data in bytes. See, whatever comes from in the standard input, the total length, it is not equal to the number of characters that was sent originally. After URL encoding, how many characters are there, that is stored. Okay. So, hash followed by number, all those numbers will go on increasing. Then content type. Content type is a standard mime header it can tell you that it is an HTML file, it is a plain text, or what type of content it is. Then query string. Query string is used in conjunction with get. Here in the URL, whatever is after the question mark, that will get stored in the query string variable. There are some other environment variables which are there, which we have not talked about. There is something called remote ADDR. This stores the IP address of the client which has made the request. Remote host is the host name of the client. Sometimes the server needs to store in some log that who is the person who has sent me the request, which IP address, which machine, from which machine the request has come. So, these environment variables can be used for that purpose. Of course, request method, get or post. Server name, the web server's host name or IP address is also available. Server protocol, which version of HTTP is running. Server port, on which port number on the server this particular request has arrived, and script name, which CGI script is being executed now. So many environment variables are there which you can use. Now coming to the response header, the most common response header is the content type, because as I had mentioned, whenever the CGI scripts outputs the data back to the browser, there will be two parts. One will be the header part, other will be the body part. The header will be mime encoded. Mime encoded header type looks like this: content type colon text equal to plain, text slash plain, or text HTML, or image GIF, or video AVI. There are many other alternatives. So, this content type is a very important mime type which is present in the header, which the CGI script will be generating as the output, so that the browser after receiving it can understand what type of data it is. If it sees that it is text.plain, then it will not try to compose it, it will display whatever it comes in text on the screen. If it sees if it is text slash HTML, then it is expecting that an HTML page will be coming back with all those tags HTML, body, etc. So, it will try to compose it as an HTML page and so on. If it is an image JPEG, then it will try to display it as an image, alright, fine. So, a typical complete mime header may look like this: content type text plain, character set US ASCII, content transfer encoding 7-bit, content description PostScript. So, it depends on the application of the CGI script. You may not give all the details, but at least you can give some minimum information which can be handled by the browser. Okay. So, content type is one such minimum information which is required. Okay. So, let us look at some of the CGI real life examples, some of which we have already mentioned. Let us try to look at some of the salient points of these. Search engines I have already mentioned, so I need not spend much time on it. You have a small box, you type in the keywords you want to search for, press the button search or go, request goes back to the web server, some database is searched, some data retrieved, they are composed as an HTML page and is sent back to me. So, on my browser I can view it as an HTML page. That is the search engine application of a CGI script. Page hit counter is slightly more involved. See, you may have encountered the case, there are some websites where if you visit the websites, you will get some information that this page has been visited so many times. Okay. So, this is called a page hit counter. There are a number of ways to implement page hit counter. Page hit counter can be stored as a some number in an environment variable or in a database which will be updated every time that page is visited or some form is submitted, that you go on incrementing or updating. But there is one thing that you should understand, page hit counter is a variable, and whatever you are viewing, that is an HTML page. See, if it is a dynamically generated HTML page, then I have no issue, I have no problem. Then while generating the HTML page, the page hit counter value can also be included as part of the HTML page. But suppose I have a fixed page, nothing else changes, only one number at the bottom of the page changes. How I can implement that without modifying my HTML page which is stored on the server? There are a number of ways in which people have tried to do it. One way is very simple. There are small GIF images corresponding to the digits 0 through 9. The CGI script composes an image based on the present value of the page hit counter. Suppose it is 935, it puts 9, 3 and 5 and it composes an image. In the HTML file there is a hyperlink to that particular image, so that image gets loaded, and that image is continuously changed or modified by the CGI script program. Okay. So, in this way the content of the image gets changed and you can see that count value also changing. Okay. So, this is an application. Student registration is fairly simple. You have a form, you fill up and submit and the information goes in the database. Online booking and online purchase are also very similar. There is facility that through forms you can fill up relevant information and you can submit them. This email gateway I have mentioned. Feedback scripts, there are many websites you can have, you can also do it in your own website if you design one. You can have a box, a text box at the end where you can invite some feedback from the visitors. Please write how do you like my page. You type something and press submit. That is like a page you are submitting, like a form you are submitting. This will go to the HTML, you can say HTML CGI script on the other side, and the CGI script will wake up, it will take that value which is entered and maybe it will store in the database. Okay. And web based games is another application where CGI scripts and similar technologies are also used. Security is one problem with CGI script if you do not use it in a judicious way. Let us try to understand what this means. Suppose I have floated my web server. This is my computer. I am running Apache on this computer. I have created some web pages. I have written some CGI script programs which are stored on my computer. Someone from anywhere in the world comes and accesses my page. There will be some forms in some of the pages. The users will be filling up the forms and submitting them. Submitting means the CGI script program will be running and they will be running on my computer. So, someone else sitting somewhere I do not know, he or she is an anonymous entity for me, is sending something and making some program on my machine executing. So, I should be very careful about this. Why? This is related to the user input. Normally, what is recommended is that do not put user data directly in a shell command without verifying the data carefully. A very classical example and simple example is being illustrated next. Well, this example concerns a particular command that is available under the Unix or the Linux operating system called finger. Finger is a command which takes one argument, finger username. Like I can give a command finger blank xyz. if XYZ is the name of a user on that machine, then I can get all the details of that user. What is the name of that user, the contact telephone number, last when he logged in, if he has left any message that he is out of the station, out of office, that also I can see. Normally finger command is used to know some status information about a particular user. Maybe in a web page I have kept a facility like that. I have kept a facility so that a remote user can type the name of some user and my CGI script will run a finger command and give back the result to that user, that what is the status of that user. Okay. But this is a very dangerous thing. Why? So, as I said that basically the CGI script is running the finger command. If you are writing the CGI script in Perl, well, we will be learning Perl later, but let us see how a statement in Perl looks like. System finger username, this is a typical Perl statement. This means finger is a command which you are asking the operating system to run, that means the Linux or Unix to run, with a parameter $username which is coming from the form. $username is something which you are getting or which you are reading from the form. Okay. So, finger something, that something is coming from the form. Now, let us see what are the possibilities here. Normally in place of username, say we can give a username like ISG. So, the command will translate to finger ISG and the remote user can see the details or the information about the user ISG. But suppose the user is malicious and instead of typing ISG, the user types this entire string ISG colon RM minus R slash. What does this mean? This means you are trying to execute a statement like this, finger ISG semicolon RM minus R slash. Now, in Unix multiple statements can be given on the same line separated by semicolon. So, actually this means there are two statements you are asking to execute. First one is finger ISG, that is fine. Second one RM minus R slash means from the slash means from the root you recursively go on deleting all the files. So, this will delete all your files on the machine. So, a remote user has been able to delete all the files on my machine, but this is because I was not careful. I did not check what the user typed in place of the username. Was it ISG or something more after semicolon, something else. Okay. So, this is one very simple example which illustrates that whenever you are passing some form data directly to a script for execution, you need to be doubly sure that exactly what you are passing and what are the different possibilities that you may encounter. So, this is the example I told you. Fine. Okay, now let us look at a couple of example CGI programs. Well, we are not talking about form data at present, because form data will require some string manipulation that we shall discuss when we talk about Perl. Here we talk about some simple shell scripts and using the simple shell scripts how you can write a CGI program. The first example, this is the CGI script. First, this is a variable called CAT where I am storing the string /bin/cat. For those who are familiar with Unix shell script, bone shell or bash, it will be easy for you to understand. For the others, I urge that you should look into the syntax of the Unix shell scripts like bash and you will be able to understand this. This echo means displaying on the screen. So, you are displaying this content type colon text plain on the screen. Echoing null means a blank line on the screen. This statement means $cat means the content of this CAT. Whether this CAT is an executable file exists, -x means whether this exists on the system, whether this is an executable file. Bin cat, cat means concatenate. This cat command is sometimes used to view a file. If it exists, then you give a command that cat $1 means the first parameter. This is coming from somewhere. Pipe sort. So, whatever is coming, you sort it and then you display it on the screen. Else, if it is not there, you output an error message, cannot find command on this system, followed by end if fi, fi means end if. Now, if you see what is coming on in the output will be content type text plain followed by a blank followed by the content of some file. This is actually a mime encoded file. There is a mime header, between mime header and the body there has to be a blank line, that blank line is also there. So, whenever this comes back to my browser, I will see the contents of the file in textual form, not composed as HTML, but in text form, because it has been mentioned as text plain. Okay. But the question is how to invoke this. This can be invoked as follows. This program, as I mentioned, sends the contents of a file in the sorted order back to the browser. And how to invoke? You can invoke it directly by specifying this URL in an HTML file, href. This is the name of the shell script. This means that it is a get method of submission. You specify the name of a file, here you specify which file you want to display. Of course, this is a hyperlink. Here I have shown an example where this first parameter, this will be treated at that as that $1 in the previous example. If you go back, this $1 whichever is whatever was there here, this is the first parameter, this will be actually this entire thing will be taken as $1, the particular file on the server which you want to execute. Now, the same thing you can also invoke using a form with a get method. It is a dummy form, there are no forms to fill up, or you can have one form where the entire path name of the file you are filling up, then a submit, then the same thing will happen. It is getting submitted, the shell script can access the first parameter of the form as $1 and it simply displays the content of the file on the screen. Let us take another example which is a little more complex. Here we are composing as an HTML file, not as a text. Here we are outputting content type text HTML, then a blank line. Now, since we are trying to output an HTML, we have to output all the tags of the HTML also. This we are doing here. See, this statement bin cat less than eom means you simply concatenate all the statements which follow blindly until you encounter a string called eom. This you could replace by cat on each of the lines, it makes it much shorter. So, here you put it on each and every of the lines, this entire thing gets displayed, this entire thing gets outputted bin cat, this entire thing is outputted till this eom comes, then the contents of the files will come here, then again of course there is a space here, cat this file name. So, this file will get displayed on the screen, again cat less than eom up to eom, the end of the HTML will come here. So, actually what will come back or what will be outputted will be the total HTML file with the contents of the file embedded in it. So, this program actually outputs the contents of the file as an HTML file. It can be invoked through a dummy HTML form or through a link like this CGI bin test2.sh. Okay. So, this gives you some simple idea how you can invoke a form CGI script and some simple example email gateways. This I have already mentioned, some popular email gateways are there which you can use, and one such email gateway Yahoo looks like this. You can see that there are so many forms you need to fill up, and send means you are submitting the form. Okay. So, it is just that. Browser is connected to the email gateway is connected to the mail server. So, writing CGI script using Perl we will be discussing later when we talk about the language Perl, and there we shall take complete examples and see that how actually data can be sent to a script using the name value pairs and the like. So, with this we come to the end of today's discussion on the basic technology behind CGI scripts. Let us very quickly go through the solutions to last day's lectures. First question was, what is a hotspot? It is a defined region on an image map which when clicked hyperlinks to a specified URL. Difference between client side and server side maps. In server side map, the processing of mouse click is done on the server side. Okay? There is a program executing there. In client side map, all information are present in the HTML file and is done locally by the browser itself. Okay? So, you need not disturb the server for this. What information does the image map configuration file contain? Default URL, optional base URL, geometries of the hotspot and their corresponding URLs. What is the purpose of default URL? As I mentioned, it specifies the URL where the user will be taken if he or she clicks on a region which is not a hotspot. Okay? That is the purpose of default URL. Why is client side image map faster and puts less load on server? Because all processing are done locally. Why is ismap used? To indicate that the included image is a clickable map, and ismap is used for the server side maps. Usemap is also used to indicate that the image is a clickable map, but is used for client side. The last question was, for a geometrical shape like this, an image with 4 regions, to show the client side image map configuration specification. So, as an example, we have taken some coordinates 0 0 here, 0 50, 50 50, 50 0, and the center coordinate is 25 25, and the 4 zones we just referred to as left, right, top and bottom. So, with these coordinates we can straight away we can write specification of the 4 polygons which will be triangles as follows. You can give some name. There will be actually 4 polygons, there will be 6 coordinates each, 6 coordinate values, 3 points, and the references will mean which one, left, right, top and bottom. So, this you can easily relate with this how it comes. Okay. Now, for the questions from today's lecture, what does the request method environment variable specify? How does the form data gets accessed in get and in what form? How does the form data get accessed in post? Why is the post method more desirable as compared to get? Perform URL encoding on the following string. Okay, try to do this where there are some special symbols out here. How does the CGI script know that the form data is received has been URL encoded? What is the function of the Unix command finger? Write a CGI program using shell script which will send back the message, thank you for submitting, every time a form is submitted to it. So, with this we come to the end of today's lecture. In our next lecture we shall be looking at some other technologies, not directly CGI script, which can also be used to write server side applications. take data from forms and so on. Thank you. In the last few lectures we had talked about HTML forms, CGI scripts, image maps, the different ways of designing interactive web scripts. Now in addition to CGI scripts, which traditionally is written in Perl or such similar language with strong character or string manipulation capabilities, there are some alternate solutions also. Today in this lecture we would be talking about a couple of such alternatives which you have when you want to design such interactive web pages. So, under other technologies we would basically be talking about active server pages ASP and this PHP. Well, active server pages, this is a Microsoft based technology. This typically runs under the Windows operating system and requires their own proprietary web server IIS to be running on your system in order to have ASP installed. Of course, you can have any other web server with ASP support, but IIS is the recommended one. However, PHP, this is a solution which is available almost under all platforms. Now, as the other alternative, you can also have Java servlets. Many people develop their interactive web pages using Java, using of the HTML page. But in this second example, we would see how we can use ASP variables. We can store the form data in variables which we can later on check or process in whatever way we want. Well, we are not formally showing you the syntax of the ASP language, but rather we are giving some examples through which you will understand how an ASP code will look like, and you can easily modify this kind of programs to create the program of your choice. Okay. So, the example 2 is an application where we are designing a form. The form will ask the user to enter his or her favorite sport. There is a choice, of course, cricket or tennis or chess, and then it should respond back to the user with some suitable message mentioning that. So, we will see how we are doing this. Now, the way we have implemented or written this application is that the name of the sport as the user enters